Hello, Cherries fans, and welcome to the Sunday sit down, a chance to talk all things AFC Bournemouth with someone who knows a thing or two about the Cherries. And look, there's, and you, Tom. There's tons to discuss. There's a lot of concern amongst the fan base, a bit of intrigue, and a lot more besides. So there's not a better time to chat to Mark McAdam from Sky Sports, who's with us here. Mark, how are you doing on this beautiful sunny day?
Yeah,
right?
I'm all good, thank you. All good. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's like Bournemouth is living up to its reputation at the moment, isn't it? It feels like it's been sunny since March.
It really is. And Tom, how are you coping with the heat? Because I know that you're not so good. You're donning your shorts today.
I don't think I've wore shorts since America.
Oh, what, last year?
Yeah, when we went. I never wear shorts, so that's how hot it must be, mate. But yeah, no, enjoying it, even though missing it a little bit as well, the football and stuff. But there's been a bit on, and there's lots to talk about. Yeah,
there's been tons to talk about. So today we are in Mark's neck of the woods, actually. We're in Ringwood. This is the new Forest Pantry. It's an independent-run family cafe serving espresso coffee, loose-leaf tea, freshly prepared foods, and delicious homemade cakes. They make freshly prepared foods with locally sourced produce where possible. So everyone who visits can make themselves at home. A great social space with country forest decor, an upstairs section, and a little outdoor garden where we were today. We thought we'd make the most of the sunshine. Check out their website. It's thenewforestpantry.com. Mark.
And I turned up with a tap water.
Yeah.
If I'd have known that was coming,
there we go.
All those descriptions and foods and cakes, I would have had everything.
Yeah. Mark, we've not caught up in a while, and I suppose it's a good time just to briefly talk about how unbelievable last season was for AFC Bournemouth. I mean, what season it was. I think we did our predictions. We were thinking, 12th or 11th would be good. Yeah. But another record equaling finish. But not just that, the points tally as well. It's phenomenal, and so many good memories as well.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. Great to see. You always wonder where the ceiling is for this football club, and it felt like under Maxim we kind of hit that ceiling, which was a top 10 Premier League finish, and then it was about survival. And then Bill Foley rolls into town with all these brilliant ideas, backing the club in the right way, bringing in really good people, transforming AFC Bournemouth, and then suddenly the ceiling changes, and then Andoni comes in and has a fantastic first solid season, and then last season was just breathtaking to watch at times. Style of football, the connection between the fan base and the team, and then, which record do you want to talk about? Is it defensive record? Is it the goal scoring record? Is it the points tally? Is it those massive games against Forest or away at Newcastle or the Man City game? Or, there was just so many high moments throughout the course of the campaign. And for me personally, I would have absolutely loved to get into Europe, right? And make no bones about it. Getting into Europe would have been phenomenal for the club. I think the long-term effects of getting into Europe may have damaged the trajectory and progression that they're currently making. But in the end, it felt like the perfect finale. At one stage on the final day of the season, we were 12th.
Yeah.
We then finished 9th. I think if we'd just say we'd beaten Villa and then we'd also won that last game and finished 8th, and you had that high of, yes, we've got European football.
Palace.
Actually, no, we haven't got European football. That would have been a real sucker punch. So we had like a week or so to just go, right, we're not going to get Europe. Let's enjoy and let's get the top half. And it just felt like the most perfect finish to the season. So, everyone deserves huge credit. It was amazing to watch. And there's a really high bar now for this football club. But I actually think it's attainable. I don't think it's just... that's our best ever season. We're never going to get that far again. I think there are still levels for this team to grow.
Tom, it's fair to say that right now, though, feels like a little bit of concern within the fan base with stars that have departed, stars that are rumoured to be leaving. Whether they will or not, I don't know. It's been a long old journey with certain players. And then some more rumours besides. And we don't like that, do we?
We don't. I think it's always going to happen. I think it probably in a weird way is a good thing and a compliment, because it means you've done well if you're getting all your players linked with other clubs. We had a spell with Andoni getting linked everywhere as well, so it means you've done something right. Having said that, I think it's just it's more the case of how many and in certain areas. Obviously, we're aware of Dean Howson. We always knew that would happen with the release clause. The Kepa was annoying, because I think the fans just started to really love him.
Yeah.
And I think then we started going, oh, hang on, the link with Andoni, Bilbao, he might stay for it. He must love playing every week. And that doesn't look like it's obviously going to happen. Looks like potentially Arsenal or somewhere else. Milos obviously has been rumoured for Liverpool for a long time.
Has he?
And then I think Fab might have mentioned it once or twice, Milos, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And then...
It might be the most players ever mentioned.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyone has ever been mentioned as much as
Dean Howson was close for a while.
Yeah.
And then obviously what felt more out of nowhere was Zabarnyi.
Yeah.
Obviously. And as I say, we don't know if it's rumours. We're not going to tell you we're not going to say, Mark, is he going, is he staying? But are these kind of... all these rumours, are they something that we should be concerned about? Is there smoke without fire kind of thing, I guess, with a lot of these players? Or do you think that this was always going to happen, that you were going to see loads of rumours of Bournemouth players because of how well we did?
Yeah, that's just
the way it is.
Football, you know.
Yeah.
You look at Newcastle, phenomenal season. They won a trophy and, you know, their players are being linked with moves away.
Yeah.
The same with other teams, you know. It's just the nature of football. And it's the nature of football fans at the moment, because over the course of the last, 3 to 5, 6 years, transfers has become huge business.
Oh, massive.
Like huge.
Yeah.
There are people that, you know, are involved with massive organisations. You look at the metrics and the data that Sky get, and you look at clips, and we know how much is watched and what is the biggest clip of the day and what story's been. And the transfer stuff is always up to the top.
Yeah.
Because that drives traction, that drives interest. So therefore, people are just desperate to talk about it. You know, that's essentially one of the reasons why I'm here today. You know, talk about transfers, talk about the summer, talk about the season we've just had. And for a club like Bournemouth, fans need to remember the model is buy low, sell high. Now, that doesn't mean every summer they completely sell their whole team. You know, there are sensible people at the football club that are trying to plot things and work things out. And they're not just looking at this window. They'll be looking at January, and they'll be looking at next summer, and they'll be looking at, these are the players that we need to find positions for and we need to recruit for, because in a year's time or 2 years' time, we might lose that player. Or the plan is that we sell that player. The problem is, coming off the back of the season we've just had, where everyone has been exceptional, is that suddenly there's not interest in just 2 or 3, there's interest in 5 or 6. And then suddenly that's where you have a problem, because ultimately, when players' heads get turned, you cannot just say, no, you're not going anywhere. And sometimes having a disruptive player who's unhappy is not a good thing.
Yeah, sure.
You know, for the group and the dynamic and the club and the dressing room. So you actually have to go, we don't want to do it, but we've got to let this player go. Otherwise, it's going to be detrimental to our season moving forward. So, I'm kind of, we've only lost 1 as of right now. Would we lose 2 or 3? Definitely 2, possibly 3. But ultimately, Bill's a wealthy guy. There's good people at the club. This is a good, exciting project to be a part of. And I think there will be some sensible decisions made within certain individuals. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see a new contract or 2.
That'd be nice,
But has a release clause.
You
know, I said on Sky Sports News, I think that's a really sensible way about doing business. Because if, you know, with Dean, the release clause, when you pay 12 to 13 million quid for someone, but they can go for 50, you think, well, if he's going to go for 50, good luck to him. You know, we can't stand in the way of that.
And I always felt that was probably one of the reasons we got him, because he knows that we're not going to stand in this way.
Of course. If you go, there are certain clubs in the Premier League that have a reputation of being really difficult to get your player out of. And you don't want to have that. And also, a lot of players will sign contracts, but they want to know that they can get an exit.
Yeah, of course.
Right? You know, otherwise they won't sign it. The same as if you go to a club and they get relegated, but you've 50% wages reduction. Well, I'm not going to sign that. I'm going to go there. I don't want to risk that. No. So players and their agents are sensible when it comes to negotiations and contracts and putting things in that they can and can't get. And that's where, you know, the club just has to say, like, we are a platform for you to go and be in the Premier League. Adrien Truffert, really solid left back, captain of Rennes, a little bit of international experience. But part of the selling package to him was, come here, we'll put you in the shop window, and you will be France's #1 left back for the next 5 to 10 years. We believe.
Are you saying that whilst we're the victims of our own success in terms of players going, in many ways that's actually a positive, because players are going to be looking upon the situations of like Dean Howson, potentially Kerkez, and thinking, hang on a sec, if I play for these guys for a couple of seasons, this could be the springboard for me for playing for you know, a big 6 Premier League side or a bigger side in Europe, potentially.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, so we're the best advert for ourselves, really.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Pressure on the recruitment team, big. But
Oh,
if you keep putting them out, and you're not going to do it every time, but that's obviously a bit of the model, isn't it?
Yeah.
And do you think they anticipated, because fans are fans, and we're like, oh my God, they're all going to leave. Do you think they anticipated this? They anticipated clubs coming in for their players and
of course.
plan ahead?
Of course. Yeah, I don't think there was any question mark about the interest of players because they've been so good. And they're all so young as well. And that's the thing. You speak to any single team, you look at Chelsea, you look at Man United, everyone wants to buy someone who's 18, 19, 20 for whatever, 10 million, and then flog them for 70 million when they're 24, 25. Dom Solanke was the perfect example of Bournemouth operating in the way that they want to operate. You buy a young player who cost you 20 million quid. I think it was something like 2 million every 6 months. Right. So I think it cost Bournemouth like 2 million quid. And then 2 million, 2 million. Over 5 years, that works out 20 million quid. A brilliant deal to do. We had him at the start of his career. Yes, he'd had a taste of Chelsea and Liverpool, but he was never quite good enough. But he developed, he went on a journey, he went down to the Championship, he banged in loads of goals, came up to the Premier League, and then got his big move to a Big Six side. And Bournemouth turned 20 in, whatever, plus add-ons into 65.
I remember when he signed for us, and then everyone was, when Newcastle got Eddie, they were using him as an example of a flop. But remember when they signed Dom Solanke for 20 million, what a waste that was. And they look at him now. They knew, they saw something.
But players have different paths. Not everyone comes into the team and performs like so well in the first, like Howson, Players don't do that. No. And same with Anton. He's had a slow burn. But now you're seeing a really top-class Premier League player. Now, if his numbers were slightly better, I would be really concerned about him going. I'm not so concerned about Anton leaving because I think the numbers, the club want big money for him. I think he knows as well, right? I just need to build on what I'm doing. I've spent a lot of time this season interviewing Anton. Funny enough, whenever there seems to be an interview, he's the one that gets put up. He's a really good guy. He's a family man. And he is not someone I think that is desperate for the next move. He knows that if he does another solid season, then he'll be ready for that next.
He's had humble beginnings as well when he's starting.
Bristol City.
I've said to you before, haven't I, that I just felt, I said the same with Anton without knowing anything, that the type of player he is and these big clubs that are murmuring around, there's players that were a bit more consistent and got better numbers
he did have
in his position for the same price.
Season, which maybe helps.
So he probably needs to up that a little bit.
Is there a danger though of almost like a domino effect in the minds of, I don't know, players that have been linked, like say Justin Kluivert's been linked to like Bayer Leverkusen, is it? And obviously Antoine Semenyo, loose links, even loose links with Marcus Tavernier as well. Do you sense that, when one player goes and then Milos Kerkez, rumours about Zabarnyi, do you think players are considering their own future thinking, oh God, I mean, is there any reason to stick around if this whole project thing is like falling apart?
I think players will think about their own future every day.
Constantly,
I don't think that will change regardless of who goes out the door. There will be players that think, have we hit the ceiling? Time for me to move. But there's also agents that want to put stuff out there because they want to engineer a new deal. They want to get more money. They want to, agents make money by moving players. They don't make money by someone staying at a club for 7 or 8 years. All right, fine, that happens, but I'm not going to make any cash that way. I'd rather move you. I'll move you sideways, and then I'll move you sideways, and then I'll move you up, and then I'll move you down, and that's where I'm going to make money. So there is always going to be noise, and a lot of agents use the media to publicise their players and sort of force the club's hand a little bit. Like, right, let's give you a new deal. Let's turn your 30 grand a week into 60 grand a week, and then everyone's happy. So you have to take everything with a pinch of salt.
You do.
And I think so many people within transfer rumours on social media love to have a few clicks and a bit of, a few retweets and all that kind of stuff. So therefore, it's just like, take everything with a pinch of salt. And remember, this is just one great big game of chess. And one game of poker all at the same time, where people are just trying to play each other off, put out the right imagery, put out this information that's going to help me with this. Sometimes you see players linked with clubs and you go, well, that is 100% not going to happen. But they've used that to try and engineer this one.
Yes.
And that's definitely the case with a couple of Bournemouth players over the course of this summer.
When you talk about chess, though, when you like having a game of chess, I'm going on Queen's Gambit on you, but
good program.
For every match of chess, there is a Gary Kasparov who sat in the seat. So that for us is Andoni Iraola. We're fearful, aren't we? Because it was last May that he signed a 1-year contract extension. As yet, there's been nothing. we're a little bit concerned because obviously it must be tiring for him thinking like we're going to be more of a transitional club. Every season that goes past, it's going to be transition after transition, it seems, based upon how good our recruitment is, which is a good thing. But is there any danger of him being tired of this, thinking, I'm trying to sort this project, but this project's getting ripped to pieces every season? Do you think that's a concern in his mind, that there are these players that are likely to go?
I don't think so. I think he knows. I think we all know. Deep down, we all know what Bournemouth, we know we're still massively punching above our weight by being in the Premier League. We're there because we've earned it. We're there because we've got incredible players. We've got a brilliant structure, great people making good choices and good decisions, and they've got everything pretty much spot on. That's why we're there, and that's why we deserve to be there. But ultimately, the club is still building and growing and developing. And Andoni knows that. He knows what Bournemouth is about. He knows the model. Buy young, sell high. Yeah. Play exciting, expansive, attractive football, whichever way you can do that. That means play the ball forward quickly, then so be it. And I think, it's quite interesting because obviously I sit with him most weeks in press conferences or one-on-one interviews, and there's invariably a question about his contract. There's invariably a question about the future. And I genuinely get the impression he is so relaxed. Yeah. He is so relaxed about it. He operates in the way that he is operating.
I remember him once saying that in Spain it's quite normal to just have a year contract. Yeah. So I don't know why everyone's talking about the contract. I'm quite...
Yeah, it is like that. He is relaxed with it. And ultimately as well, most managers, they might have a 3-year contract, but termination 12 months. So it's a 12-month contract. Financially makes no difference to him. Yeah, and he always says if we lose the first 9 games or don't win for the first 9 games of the season, they ain't going to be talking about giving me a new deal. They're going to be talking about whether I'm going to be sacked or not. Yeah. And that's how fine the margins are when it comes to that kind of thing. So I think, Bill Foley has said we'd like to give him a new contract and extend it and so on and so forth. So I wouldn't be surprised if that were to happen. But I think everyone is quite relaxed, and Andoni is quite relaxed, and he knows his place within the structure of the club.
I suppose, Tom, our concern is, though, if he was somehow, because, I suppose our kind of levels of expectation at the moment, based on the situation right now, is we'd be happy to finish 15th, 16th next season.
If the rumoured players
But I suppose if Andoni somehow did manage to mastermind a season that's anything like it, then have a guess what? People will be looking at him thinking, hang on a sec, he's managed to take this side, remold them again.
They've lost,
and he's done it again. So he's going to be the top talent.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's definitely a concern. But then I guess you've got to look at Andoni a little bit like you have the players, and they're coming in, and if they do an amazing job, they're going to get linked to higher things. And that is, as Mark said, and as we all say, that is Bournemouth. That's what's going to happen. And I don't think a contract is necessarily going to change that. He could sign a 3-year deal tomorrow, but if we come top 10 again and a big club wants him, they'll go and get him. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of agree with Mark, and obviously Mark knows more than I do, that he just seems like he's quite happy to just go about his day-to-day business and coach the whatever players he's got for his system. So
he could sign a 5-year contract at Bournemouth. Yeah. But the release clause to a side that finishes in the top 6 is £5 million.
They're going to pay it if they want it. Yeah.
So how do we, what's his phrase? Always advance, never retreat. How do we always advance when there's this constant churn and turnover of players? Well, how do we build as a club in the meantime?
It depends what you want the club to be. I think it depends on what the aspirations are. Yeah. Right. So for me, I want to see a bigger club, a bigger fan base, more fans, more kids, attractive football. And that will take 5, 10, 15 years. Yeah. Now, ultimately, I don't want Bournemouth to get relegated because the finances are so important in the Premier League that is key to that progression. The training ground is there because of the Premier League money. Stadium being invested in is there because of the Premier League money. You need to stay in the Premier League. But, and I cover so many teams, and you see the low moments when they get relegated, and you speak to the fans and you're in that environment and it feels like the end of the world, right? And that felt like the end of the world when we got relegated in 2002 to Division 3, and then we had the Millennium Stadium, and when Kevin Bond was managing, we got relegated to -17 and so on and so forth. And then look at the journey we went on, and we got relegated under Eddie Howe with Aki and Wilson and Ramsdale, and you think, how did that side with Eddie Howe get relegated? You think, we're never going to recover from that. And then 2 seasons later, we're back in the Premier League. Now, football is not just one continuous upward trajectory of success and amazing times. You look at Man United, you look at whoever. Liverpool didn't win a league title for 30 years. Being a football fan is about the journey.
Absolutely.
Not all teams can be successful at the same time, and that's something I've come to realise.
So for me, as a Bournemouth fan, I want to see young, exciting players. I want to see a really vibrant fan base, and I want to see people joining in what we've done for 30 plus years, being a part of our little gang. Because, you know, when I first started going to the club properly 6 years ago, like, it wasn't a big thing. You could have 1,000 tickets if you wanted, because there was that availability. So I just, it's always about the bigger picture of the journey, and you will have big seasons and good seasons, and you will have low seasons, and ultimately, like, just a part of it. So, as I say, I don't worry about that constant turnover of players.
No.
You know, I've been there with other Premier League sides, owners that said, we don't want to be a stepping stone to the other clubs. Cortese at Southampton was very much in that mould. We're going to keep all our best players. We're going to make sure people want to stay here. We're going to build the best training ground we can. We're going to do this. We're going to do that, and we're not going to be a stepping stone. Guess what? You're always going to be a stepping stone. Unless you're Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United, Man City, right? You will always be a stepping stone. There are other clubs like Villa and Newcastle that are trying to punch into that, not being a stepping stone. But even clubs of that size will struggle. And that's the problem. If you spoke to any player at Aston Villa and said, do you want to join Liverpool, Man City? 99% of them say, I'm gone.
You're already looking at Newcastle, Isak linked with Liverpool, Emi Martinez linked with Man United. You know, it's a perfect example.
And why is Brian and Bomo chosen Manchester United over potentially other sides that have got Champions League football? Because it's Man United.
Still Man United.
And they get a bit of dough, but it's Man United.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, for me, that's it. If we get relegated, I've got no problem with that, right? It depends on how you get relegated. You want to play in the right way and be the right team. But that, for me, isn't like...
Yeah, I've always been like that.
The be all and end all of life. Like, it's just a part of this amazing
My
journey
worry would
that
be
we're on.
the kind of financial, that kind of stuff. That's not for me to worry about, but as a fan, I couldn't care less.
But I mean, I suppose we are lucky enough to have lived through the low moments. So every so often I'm having these kind of nightmares at night where I can't sleep thinking what's going to happen next season. And then I find myself like pulling myself back thinking, like, can I remember what it was like 20 years ago? Like that kind of thing, you know? So but it's weird that I'm having these kind of, bad dreams about what's going to happen. Where like, really? It's not all bad, is it?
No. But be sustainable. Just be financially sound. You know, when I was at the club, when I worked at the club in between 2002 and 2008, 9, just getting paid. That was the nightmare. Not, oh my God, are we going to get relegated from the Premier League and have 4 years of parachute payments?
But I suppose
that wasn't the fear.
But I suppose it's when you hear Bill Foley talking about like the fans forum thing that's just been announced on put on YouTube about like talking about Europe still and re-emphasising the fact that he wants to be playing regular European football. That's what makes me like really excited again.
You start dreaming.
He's pulling me that way, but like me of 20 years ago is pulling me back the other way.
But that's what it's all about, isn't it? Like Mark said, it's about the journey, it's about dream. You might as well dream, ain't you? You might as well. I mean, it was, it's like anything, isn't it? When we went to Newcastle, they were on like a 15-game unbeaten run, but we went, could we? And we did. You've just got to, you've got to do things like that. You've got to dream, but you've also got to, have that realisation of who we are. For sure.
Just look along the coast at Brighton, probably the best run club in the Premier League, financially stable, really sensible owner, really, really good people running the club, very similar to Bournemouth. And yet they've had that little taste of European football and then they've fallen away again. And so it's, and you look at the club, you look at the size of the stadium, you look at the fan base, it's a club, down the channel, down the line for us. So, and look how hard they find it. So it's one of those things. It's just, regular European football, that might be 10 years away. But that has to be the ambition.
It's got to be.
Bill can't come in with ambitions of, I just want to stay in the Premier League, finish 17th every season. Well, that's not him. He's a super, super ambitious guy. So it's always like, well, that's the target. It might be 5, 10, 15 years away, but that's what we have to aspire to be.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say quickly, we've spoken a lot about kind of the rumours of people going out. Regardless of that, I'm not going to ask you any names if you can. Do you think the club there'll be a decent sized turnover? Do you think, like last season, it felt like with injuries, which you can't help, but a lot of injuries, we felt quite thin. Do you think that there'll be a lot of incomings as well?
I think there will be incomings. I think, the club's really sensibly run. There's good people across the top of the club making decisions. Obviously, Thiago's operating in his first full summer where he is the boss. Richard was still doing bits last season and guiding us through. And and he'll want to put his own stamp on it alongside with Simon Francis. Together, they'll work to try and recruit and sign the right types of players. And I guess there'll be a mix of young players that are maybe 2 or 3 years away. There'll be players that are ready for now and maybe a little bit in between. But it's difficult to tell because ultimately, Andoni likes to work with a smaller squad.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
He doesn't want, same with Pep. They don't want, reams and reams of players sat in the stand. It's no good for Bournemouth to be paying someone 50 or 60 grand a week to go and watch the game next to me and you. Yeah. That's not sensible. Yeah. That's not sustainable. So therefore, maybe we got a bit unlucky with certain injuries, but who'd have thought Dango would go and play the way he did as a false nine? And sometimes when you have injuries, someone just gets shuffled around and you go, wow. I didn't know he could do that.
Always go back to when Andoni first come in and we had that horrible run and then Lewis Cook got sent off at Wolves at home.
Yes.
And then we moved Ryan Christie into centre midfield and everyone thought, Ryan Christie in centre midfield? That's never going to work. And look at Ryan Christie now. I mean, it's the best thing that ever happened.
I'm not being rude. I'm just keeping an eye because there is stuff happening at the moment.
Oh.
Go on, give us an exclusive, Mark.
With AFC Bournemouth?
Okay. Yeah, maybe, but it's not something that we don't know.
Okay.
In or out? Just carry on talking. I'm listening. But
okay.
I do this on live TV.
Yeah, it's great. I love it when you do that.
We should be streaming this.
No, but I was saying that though, that is an important point because we even said it even prior to that with Biddin and we moved in further forward into a 10 and then he started scoring goals. Lewis Cook at right back. I mean, if I'd said that to you at the start of the season, I could, God, we're in trouble. He was unbelievable there at times. So, you move players around. You end up, sometimes for injuries, you find stuff out that you weren't aware of. And I did always think, because we spoke a lot last season, I mean, everyone did, about the thinness of the squad with the injuries and how that affected us.
Yeah.
I thought, Andoni's not really moaning about it.
No,
and that made me think, I do wonder if he is one of them that quite likes that.
Do you sense there could be some players that we've got now that could be repurposed in other positions?
Probably.
Wouldn't be surprised to see.
What's mad is you could make any statement now about a player playing a different position and it wouldn't be mad because you never would have said Ryan Christie centre midfield.
Well, because I remember when Marcus Tavernier was playing in the 10, or even when he was a bit deeper, actually. I thought he was really effective from deep. And even David Brooks was in that for a couple of times last season. Towards the end of the season, I thought he could be effective here. He's good on the ball, can spread it left and right.
It's like if we were to lose Milos as expected, we've obviously got Troffert, and then you go, something happens to Troffert, we've only got young Salah. Tavernier could probably play left back. Dango, we've seen Dango play left back. I mean, like Mark said, and I think he feels like that sort of manager where they've got to have certain attributes, characteristics to be an Andoni Iraola in terms of energy, intensity. And if they could do that, they could probably do that in different roles if they're that type of player. So but who have we signed, Mark?
No one yet, but just a couple of bits of detail. But I'm just we're going back and forth. But
should I pretend I've got something come through?
So,
where are you?
In terms of Milos Kerkez then, in particular, there have been some people that have suggested that his transfers may be being delayed for PSR purposes until in the next financial window, because the financial year ends on June the 30th. I suppose in the last kind of chunk of time, or last financial year, we banked Solanke, obviously Dean Howson as well. Some people have suggested part of that delay is us, trying to book the money for the next financial year. Or is it more complicated than that? Or are there still negotiations going on? Do you know?
As far as I'm aware, I think it's close, but I think there's still negotiations to be done on the finer details of the deal. Any transfer has essentially three sides. There's club to club, new club to player, old club to player.
Yeah.
And often there will be things in place with regards to the deal that was done initially. So, for example, when Milos came from AZ Alkmaar, that is not just a straight, there's the money, there's the agency fee, right, that's it done. Things are often structured over a period of time.
Yeah.
And Milos has changed agents in the last 6 months or so. Okay. That will also play a part in the deal because there will be agreements with his old agent and there will be agreements with his new agent and there are other things that need to be sorted out. And the other thing we have to remember is we live in this world where, everyone is desperate to be first on social media. Everyone is desperate to say, yes, told you. Yeah. Now, at Sky Sports or me or whoever, we could sit there at the start of the window and we could go through all 20 Premier League clubs.
Yeah.
And we could say, Bournemouth are looking for a left-back, a centre-half, looking for a striker and looking for a 10.
Yeah.
Right? And we could put a list of 6 right left-backs, 6 centre-halves, 6 strikers, 6 10s, and go, there you go, 24 players that Bournemouth might sign.
Yeah.
And the chances are...
you might get one.
well, chances are four or five players will be on that list, right? The same for Man United, the same for Newcastle. You can work out roughly, and you can gather information to work out who the list is and who the targets are. Yep. There will always be a few that you think, oh, we didn't know that was on the list. So then what do we do at the end of the window? So look, we told you, we were first, we got it right. Look, see, we did all, we would ruin every relationship with every club.
Yeah, sure.
We can all do that, but we don't, and some things are never advanced. As I've always said to you before, I'd always rather be an accurate second than a wrong first.
Yeah.
At Sky, we have relationships with 20 Premier League clubs worth billions of pounds. So, it's give and take. And if they say the deal's not quite done, okay, fine. We'll wait until it is done. But these days, everyone is so desperate to be first that they guess a lot of information. And you can guess stuff pretty accurately if you've got a little bit of information and you can say certain things. But it's always about the detail.
Yeah.
And it's never done until it's actually done.
We literally did like we do, we're looking at players that we might try and sign and like, who do we like, weren't we? And we were talking about the left back position. Yeah. I said, it sounds like that Truffaut seems like he fits the mold. And then a day after, it was like announced that it was going to be done. And I just guessed. Yeah. I went, I have all these left backs. He looks like he fits the mold. I just guessed.
You can generally guess. Yeah.
Yeah. You can
I think we got a list of, I got a list of 3 left backs and put it to the club and they said, oh, not yet.
Yeah.
And then over the course of the next week, the list comes out.
Yes.
So the list that you had gets put out by other people, and you always felt like Truffaut was the one that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like you say, fans can work out based on historical profile signings. The players that actually fit the bill, look right. We've signed from those leagues before, the right age, the right profile, the qualities, so on and so forth. We all know now what Andoni likes from his players.
Yeah, true.
High energy, high intensity, good stamina, people that can run and run and run and run. Good little bit of quality, but it's not so much about technical ability. It's about energy.
Yeah, for sure.
That side of it. So the dials swung in a different direction to the type of players that Bournemouth recruit for. So you can always work things out.
I'll tell you what, Milos needs that. He better hope that deal gets done because he has been twerking a bit for Liverpool. If that didn't get done, I don't know what would happen then. Because,
I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if it didn't get done.
So look, there's also in the last kind of week or so, it's been confirmed about the club's link with this multi-club model with Moriense in Portugal as well. That could be another useful sort of resource for us, surely.
Yeah, I think a lot of owners don't quite understand what the multi-club model is yet.
No.
But they don't want to be left out.
Yeah.
So, right, let's go down that path.
What in terms of like they don't know what the benefits are?
I think there are lots of benefits in. Oh, there we go. I think a bit of bird shit just.
Oh no, that's good luck. Who are we signing, Mark?
I don't know. Welcome to the pantry.
Yeah.
So to go back to your original question, just remind me what it was
about the multi-club.
Yeah, so multi-club model. Yeah, so a lot of clubs are doing it, and I don't think they know quite why they're doing it. But there are lots of good theories about why you're doing it, because you can circulate money within your own bank accounts. So basically, like you giving your wife some money and she giving it you back the next week, and so on and so forth to make sure you can facilitate all your bills and everything, and everything works. If you get really young players, you get first dibs on them. You can bring players in and send them out on loan, in theory, to a club that's coaching the same style of football as you, with the same philosophy and the same ethos. I know Eddie Howe didn't always like sending players out on loan because he would always be worried that they wouldn't get coached in the same way that he wants them to be coached.
Right, okay. Yeah.
So why would you send someone out on loan? You might play 40 games in the Football League, which is brilliant.
Better on the training field.
If it's long ball, if it's direct, if it's a certain style of football, he's going to come back and it's like, you've got a bit of game time. You've not really developed as a player in the way we want you to. Whereas in theory, if you've got clubs that are all adopting the same style of football, then that can potentially be a good thing. We've seen over the course of this summer problems with Crystal Palace. We've seen Dundalk, is it, that have been kicked out of Europe because of the multi-club model. So, there are pitfalls with it as well. There are things that happen where you have to go, well, that could affect us. We need to be a little bit careful. So I think there are lots of things in theory about it, but ultimately, you need to be careful. Look at Bill and Lorient. Lorient got relegated.
Yeah.
Now he has a minority share in that club. So again, do you need to own the whole club outright? Do you need a majority? Is a minority enough?
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. And obviously we had Dango from...
Fev went back there, didn't he?
Yeah. So...
Krupino.
Yeah. So I guess there are good things and bad things, and people are still trying to work out the good and the bad and how to really utilise it properly.
Yeah.
But Bill is a super ambitious guy. He loves sport. He obviously has had success with, in Vegas with the hockey team. Yeah. And he wants to make sure that he does everything right in a sporting capacity. And when you've got someone at the heartbeat of everything that's happening that has that passion and that drive to be successful in that way, then it can only be a good thing. It's all about the sport. It's all about the people. It's all about doing things in the right way with the right structure.
One of the things, Tom, that we are not sure about are these sort of fringe players that we think are almost sort of bloating the books a little bit in terms of, like Phil Billing, for instance. We don't know what's happening to him. Chris Mepham, Max Aarons. There's rumours of him maybe going out on loan to Rangers. I mean, personally, I don't see the point of a loan out, but I don't know. Yeah. But there are a few players that we've got that we're not sure what's going to happen to them, aren't there?
I think it's probably one of them where we've got players in that obviously we've taken, as you do with every player, you take a bit of a risk on them. Someone like Dango might not have worked and we've got him, and I think that seems to be the case with, in particular, Hamid Traore, maybe Roman Fev. A few of these players were brought in just before Andoni as well. So maybe they were more looked for going nil. I don't know. And then we changed. But yeah, there are a few that you see the contract sizes. I mean, Sinisterra is probably a good point. We know how good he is, but he's always injured and he's got a big contract. And then you start thinking, okay, we've got a lot of players that are clearly not. We were saying it with the injuries last season, but then we let Aarons go out on loan, then we let Billing go out on loan. And it makes sense financially because they're getting their wage. But then you think, God, they can't be wanted if we've got a youth team on the bench and we've let them go. And then you worry, as kind of what we were saying there about you don't want to keep unhappy players in the ranks. You worry that some of these on big contracts are clearly not kind of wanted in the way that we're playing, and they're going to be sat around or just going out on loan. And
every player, every situation is different. Some players are happy on the South Coast. Some players aren't. Some players want to live in different parts of the country. Some players are far from home. And sometimes you just don't settle with a manager or with a group or with a dressing room. So every scenario is different. I think Max is, one example someone who was just incredible when he broke onto the scene as a young teenager at Norwich. In theory, such a good player and still a really good player. Not been able to force his way into the Bournemouth side for whatever reason. Andoni can answer those questions because of training, because of whatever. Don't think it's anything wrong with his attitude. I think he's a really good guy.
I suppose as a right back, Andoni, Andoni was right back. So he knows exactly what he wants, I suppose. Maybe he didn't quite have the attributes in some ways.
Gone to Spain, not really worked out. I think he started one La Liga game, 4, 5, 6 appearances overall in 6 months, so not really worked out there. Billing is another situation, Maybe the time a few years ago would have been to sell him, but if you don't get the money you want, he doesn't, there have been times, particularly with Phil Billing, where he's had opportunities to move and he said, actually, no, I don't want to join that club. Thanks very much, but not for me. So you can't force a player.
Oh, God, no.
So ultimately, when you go down that path of loaning players out, you're going, right, they're on X amount. If we can get back 75% or 100%, then that's saves us paying. No problem at all. He's not going to be happy playing a bit part role. He's not going to be happy. Actually, financially, it doesn't make sense for us to be paying someone that kind of money who's just going to be on the bench for 10 minutes here and there and start the odd game. So you're sort of always spinning the plates and you're always trying to work out what is the best scenario for this.
Because I guess you get that one hand of kind of going, well, surely like Ben Winterburn's a good example. Come through, really, really pleased for him. But you think, well, if loan players is about development, then you loan him out and keep billing. But financially, you do it the other way. And I guess it's that juggling act, isn't it? Because listen, no one's stupid. We're not loaning out Phil Billing to develop him.
No.
So a Neto, for example, at 30, whatever, So I guess it is that juggling act of wanting to develop players. Because we've spoke a lot, haven't we, about not just fringe players, but people like Winterburn, Adu Ajay, who just come back and just scores every living game for a development side. Dominic Sadie feels like he's been there a while. And you think, they're obviously doing really well for the academy, but let's be realistic. If Bournemouth keep doing what we're doing, how are they ever going to get in the Bournemouth team?
That's what I've been wondering, because how do players get that opportunity, and how will they? Because the fine margins in the Premier League means that every minute of every game is so crucial, and you want your best stars out there.
Yeah,
you just wonder how these players will ever get chances.
It's so tough, tough. I watched Dan Iraola at Carlisle. Thought he did really well, but he was in League Two, and he scored just a small handful of goals. And then it's that next level. Generally, it's just luck. I actually genuinely believe that so many young players that get the chance, it's just that little bit of luck. For example, I go back many, many years now, and Bournemouth. Injuries galore to strikers. Kevin Bond phones up Joe Roach and says, "Joe, I need a striker." And he went, "Yeah, who have you got?" And Kevin said, I want someone who can cope with physical football. Sam Vokes, young lad, very raw, but he's probably physically the most capable player. Right, send him in. Train that week, started, played all right, started the next week, blah, 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 a few games here and there, nicks a couple of goals, bang, first team player, right? When you get that moment, you got to say Dan Iraola starts a League Cup game against whoever at the start of the season and bags a hat-trick, right?
That'd be amazing.
Change his life.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, you cannot not give him the chance.
Yeah.
He comes on for the Premier League the week after and scores an equalising goal, right? And that's it.
Yep.
He's on the belt, then he's there.
Yep.
Now, but he's got to get that chance. You've got to take that chance, and you've got to go again, whether it's an injury to a player or whether it's just a cup game against the right opponent that's at home or whatever, and you play. So every single young player that breaks into a first team environment will have had that moment at some stage. You know, Dan Iraola scored a whole shed load of goals last season when he came back on loan. And then now he's got to translate that to the first team. He comes in for pre-season, plays against whoever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Scores a couple of goals. Week after, scores another couple of goals. And then suddenly Andoni's thinking, right, actually, this is it. So, or go out on loan to the League One or the Championship. And then you do it, and then, it's just a really delicate process where you just need to be lucky.
He started scoring the goals when Evan Ilson was getting back. It was probably the worst. And it works the same. It's not a young player, but Evan Ilson was injured, Unai was injured. We had a cup game against West Brom. He went, I'll try Dango up front. He scored 2, never looked back. Dango took his chance when he got to lead the line, didn't he? And I think it is a bit of that. And we spoke about Jebison, for example. He started the season out on loan at Watford. It didn't go well. If he had nicked a goal in his first game, he might have been brilliant for Watford. They might have been offering us 5 million. And, you just don't know. And like you say, it's them. And I always remember that Vokes one. I think it was Forest. I think it was Forest on a Tuesday night. And he'd come in and was,
I suppose the performance centre and the money that we've invested into that incredible facility. Amazing, I mean, we've been around it. We were really impressed. I suppose that's going to increase the quality of the output.
Oh, absolutely.
Increase the number of players that could be up to the level. So there's more chance of us being, say, what Southampton were 20, 25 years ago, where you've got your Gareth Bales coming through and you've got someone like Theo Walcott, etc. More chance of that, I suppose, as time goes on.
Yeah, you can, in the academy setup, you have to be Category 2, Category 1. Then you can play other Category 1 sides. So you're playing better quality. So you're being tested. You can only get to those Category 2 and 1 status, obviously we are now Cat 2, by having the right type of training facility with the right type of pitches and the right type of things. So then you can go up and you go into another level and you play better quality and then you go up again. So that training ground is such a key part of the foundation to continued success, to developing players, to having good quality coaches and good quality pitches and so on and so forth. And you can see the pathway now because you turn up and you see the first team over there and the academy over there and so on and so forth. So it is a part of the bigger picture of developing players and bringing them through and making sure that they're good enough.
Do you still think there's going to be a case of, because we saw it in, I think it was January, where we got Silcott Dubry in from Chelsea. Do you still think we're going to look at some of them top clubs and try and get maybe some of the academy players that's still going to be there, and try and develop them here?
And the other thing as well, and the big clubs can do it. Man City and Liverpool being examples. Sometimes you sign young players, never thinking they're going to make the first team. But we'll make money on it. Dom Solanke was an example. I think, and I don't want to talk. I think I love Dom, by the way, and he's an unbelievable player, great guy. I think Liverpool bought him to make money. I thought their sort of mindset was, we got a really good player here who's not going to be a lot. He might be good enough for us. But actually, if he's not, we'll make money on him.
Young English,
Man
City
the same.
That's interesting. So you're saying that, because in my mind, everything we do should be always geared towards the first team, but that's not always the case.
But that is technically geared towards the first team because you're making money to then help the
Pretty
first.
much,
It's
yeah,
just
it
the way
is,
you
yeah,
go
yeah,
around
it
it,
does
isn't it?
ways.
It's
Yeah.
a business.
Yeah.
It's a business.
Yeah.
And you look at Man City's, 23 side under the last 3-4 years, Brian Barry Murphy now at Cardiff. You look at a lot of what they've done, Trafford, Lavia, Cole Palmer, and then they've had a couple, Rico Lewis, Oscar Bob, that have gone close to the first team, and they've had a load that have gone out and made money for them, huge amounts of money. Yeah. So that club, that B team, that 23 setup is making money for the team, and that's sometimes what it's about. It's not always about can we get a player into our first team? You can judge these young players on success in different ways. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's not always he didn't get the first team, he's a failure. Well, actually, we put him out on loan. We've made £1 million, or we've made a couple of £1 million, done really well. Bang, we've earned some dough. So actually, think of things as a bigger picture, not just first team. Sometimes it can be about what can we do to make money in this way as well as the other things we do.
And one of the things that it seemed to be clear from that fans forum, I was reading through the minutes and then they put that half-hour thing out on which were the highlights. One of the things that Bill Foley said was that it's not as if any player sales that we get will be, directly going towards any stadium or something. That finance is apparently all secured. But from what he said, it sounds exciting times, and it could be happening sort of within 4 or 5 years by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
I mean, first the training centre and then that. It would be, in my mind, it would be good just to tread water in the Premier League whilst that's happening. But it sounds like Bill Foley wants to do both at the same time.
Yeah, well, do you know what? That's the one thing I can say about Bill. I've been hugely impressed with his ambition every time I've met him. And I've spent so many years, different football clubs, meeting owners and chief execs and sporting directors and people that come in with all these brilliant ideas. And they give you all the buzz phrases and the catchphrases, and we're going to do this and do that. And they never deliver.
No.
And they never, ever fulfill anything with regards to what they said, where Bill Foley's actually been like that. Yeah, and he's come in and said, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And we are going to be this. And it's all true. He's not. Now, we all know in football there are moments where you get things wrong and things don't work out and so on and so forth. But so far, he's been a man of his word. And the most impressive thing about Bill is he's done it in the right way. It's not just a case of chuck loads of money at it.
Yeah, sure.
It's what can we do that's going to be sensible spending? Is it sustainable for the club? Is it the right thing for the club? He knows they need to grow the fan base. We need to have little Timmy and little Sarah that can come to watch Bournemouth as opposed to, sorry guys, I can't get tickets. Yeah. Not possible. He knows that that's such an important part to growing the club. So he wants to increase the capacity. The training ground is another example of it. Not just, let's make a training ground. Let's build the best training ground we possibly can. And that will be there for 100 years. That will develop players for our academy, for international football, for the footballing world, for hopefully many, many years to come. So it's always about doing things. Excuse me. This one I need to read.
Well, I tell you what, this could be interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's that training ground when we saw it. It's just, and you can just imagine the, bringing all the different teams under one roof. Yeah. Like the women's teams, the various youth levels and stuff. Sure. I mean, they must take a lot of experience, heart, whatever, motivation from seeing the first teamers walking out there in the same rooms as them.
Yeah, and I guess when we were talking then about kind of that stepping stone feel about youngsters wanting to come here and they show they can play it. Also, why would they not want to come here where they can go there to develop themselves, etc. So listen, we're always going to be a little bit worried about because you fall in love with your players, don't you? And if they're murmuring to go and you think, oh God, how are we going to replace him? But you just keep going. As long as all that other stuff is still ticking in the right way, then you'll be absolutely fine, regardless of who you lose. I mean, listen, I remember saying I don't see a world where we get better by losing Dom Solanke. I remember thinking that.
I mean, I was so nervous after the Dom, and
now I never thought, a bit like what Mark said, I love Dom. Now, offer me Dom back forever, no chance. And how I never thought I'd ever be in a situation like that, but I love Ever now. And that's just the way it is. If we lose Milos, for example,
we can't see past what's...
I'm just like, but I just fell in love with Dino. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Now I'm like, not Zabba, he's my favourite. Yeah, and you just...
Someone will come along and you love them even more, and that's football. Yeah. And I look back to, I think of Perchy on the right, Neil Young on the right.
Oh, yeah, Younger.
Wally on the left, centre halves, Sean Mayer, Carl Fletcher, Lewis Buxton at Millennium, Fletch, Hater, Elliott, O'Connor. That's like, you fell in love with that strike force, that front four.
Well, you don't feel like it's ever gonna.
That's so you'll always have those connections with certain players and certain positions and certain things.
We were watching that TST tournament over there, and amid all the rumours that were going on with our defence falling apart, we're like, so here's like Tommy Elphick and Charlie Daniels. Perhaps they're training for next season at this rate.
Smith's back. That's mad, isn't it? The back four. The only one that wasn't really there was Smith.
He's still going
because he's still going. I mean, he is unbelievable, that guy. Yeah. But yeah, it was like a bit nostalgia. I want to see some of them players playing and stuff, and some of them still looking all right as well. Brett's still putting the ball in there.
I think they trained for that for about 4 months before. They were doing a lot of sessions for that tournament.
Yeah.
And they took it very seriously.
There was a few times where I saw Sermon just laying off a path. Oh yeah, I missed that little Sir passes and stuff. Yeah, it is nice to see.
So it's not all doom and gloom then, Mark. No. It's not all doom and gloom. There are, and there will be incomings. Do you think there's going to be a certain period of time where things might start to happen, where the cogs might start turning? Because at the moment, in terms of incomings, I know we've had Trufair in, but other than that, there haven't been many other names linked apart from this kind of loose transfer conjecture. Yeah. Do you think there'll be a specific, because it's less than 2 months to go now?
Yeah. To be honest, normally you'd have a bit of an insight into where the targets were and who they were and what they were looking at. And obviously things are very different now. Thiago operates in a different way with Simon Francis. So it seems like they keep their cards very close to their chest, which is good in a way.
Yeah.
Not so good for fan rumours because we've got nothing to hang on. I'd be surprised if there weren't, 3 to 5 new faces at the club.
Yeah.
Already got Truffert in, so another 3 or 4 I'd have thought over the course of this summer. I think
was that one of them?
That was just Milos is very close.
Okay.
Still not done.
Yeah.
But close.
Still
how close is close?
Yeah.
But that's not something that we don't actually already know.
Sure.
That's that is. But
Do you think a lot of the income stuff will depend on them kind of movable objects in terms of, like we were saying then, your Philip Billings, your Hamid Traore's, like, are they going to be, all right, shall we integrate them back in the squad, or are we going to cash in, or are we going to loan? And that will determine how many we bring in.
Of course. I think everyone in theory has a clean slate at the start of pre-season.
Yeah.
If you want to be at Bournemouth and you want to impress, now's your chance.
Yeah, I'm really interested in certain players like your Meps and Traores, like if they are given another kind of clean slate, like you say.
Yeah, you don't know who's going to be involved, who needs to be involved, what will happen with Zabarnyi and other players that are being linked with potentially a move away, and suddenly you find yourself in the team, and suddenly you find yourself an important member of the team, and you go from there, and that's where we don't know. I'd imagine that they would try and replace a lot of these players that depart, and then a couple of additions as well, so they've got a little bit more strength in depth. But it's such a movable feast. You never quite know. Did I expect a phone call from PSG, or did the club expect a phone call from PSG for Zabarnyi? Probably not. No. He was one of those you go, right, people are watching him, we know that, but probably got another year or two.
Yeah.
He's 22.
I thought the housing thing might have taken away from Zabarnyi as well.
He's still got time on his side. He's still young. We've still got a bit of time with him. We'll worry about him next year or the year after. That's not a concern at the minute. But when someone like PSG calls, the whole thing changes.
Yeah, of course.
Did an interview with Paul Barber this season, and he said, one phone call at 7:30 in the morning for Graham Potter from Chelsea changed the whole next 2 years of their club. Right?
No.
Everything completely changed. One phone call, and the whole direction and dynamic of what they were doing completely went out on the window, and they had to reassess, reevaluate, sign a new head coach, sign new players, go in a different direction, slightly different footballing philosophy, and blah. So that's what football's like. So it is hard to say, right, this is what's going to happen, and this, because you just don't know.
Yeah, sure.
And there are, so many variables. Someone could get injured in pre-season, just say someone, big gets injured, hopefully not long term, even at another club. And they go, oh, right, we desperately need a winger.
Yeah, so
we desperately need a winger.
Yeah.
All right, it's too much. We don't want to pay it, but we'd rather pay a bit more and go into the season with the player we believe in, as opposed to going there with a young kid.
Yeah.
So you just don't know, and that's what keeps everyone on their toes.
I would say I think Dino owes Marcos Celesi some cash, because if Marcos Celesi didn't get injured, that's what's happened, isn't it? Dino took his chance, but if he didn't, we may never have seen Dino so much. Do you know what I mean? That's how things change.
Yeah, Nathan Aki was another one as well.
Yeah.
It took a while to get in the team.
He's not really getting the Man City team, by the way. Bring him home. Bring him home.
Why not?
Come on, Dave. I
Why
love
not?
Nathan, wouldn't you?
Well, look, Mark, it's been a pleasure. I've left the most important question
okay.
Oh, God.
until last.
Yeah, you have actually.
So Tiggs bumped into you at Tesco's apparently recently. He asked,
Yes.
did you get the right wipes for your mop?
Oh. I did.
You did.
Thank
God
you.
for that.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah.
All the serious questions answered on the back of the net. World exclusive there. We could put that as a thumbnail. World exclusive.
Yeah, it's good job. It's good job.
Mark, look,
cheers, Mark.
it's been a pleasure. We know you're in a situation where you can't reveal too much.
Yeah.
However, I'm sure maybe off air you'll tell us all
tell
the
us
secrets.
everything and we'll let you
Maybe
all know.
we'll twist his arm. But I presume that you're working a lot at the moment, and transfer. It's all about the transfer. I mean, no one's watching the Club World Cup by the sounds of it. But it's all about the transfers and rumours, etc.
Yeah, that's it. It drives everything at the minute at Sky Sports News. So, we've got transfer shows 3 times a week, 2 shows a day, and then it will ramp up as we get closer to the season starting. So, it doesn't ever go away. And I've done something on transfers every day for the last, 3 or 4 weeks. Even when I'm not working, the phone's still going.
Yeah.
I've been sat here with you for an hour or so. Yeah. I've been getting messages, things coming through, people asking questions. Liverpool doing this, and Newcastle doing that. Is Brighton doing this? Is Bournemouth? What's happening? Is there it's non-stop. And
Do you get tired at the relentlessness at football?
Yes. Do you know what? You get tired. The worst thing that really frustrates me is you have to chase things that you know are not close, but because someone says it's close,
you've got to dig.
It comes again. How many times over the last 3 weeks has someone said, Milos Kerkez to Liverpool, here we go, deal agreed, close to being agreed, so on and so forth, right? And then, hang on, we're 4 weeks later and it's not done.
Yeah.
It's still close.
Yeah.
But imagine all the time in the last 4 weeks I have spent talking about Milos Kerkez at Liverpool, right? That's essentially just wasted energy.
Yeah,
right?
Because we're still at the same place.
We're still at the same place, right? Yeah. It's close.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Is that 80% close? 99% close? What's still got to be done? Negotiations with clubs are normally quite simple. I'd take the mick and we do it. Ongoing talks.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I love the buzzwords.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Because generally,
there's loads of buzzwords, aren't there? Yeah.
Generally, it is. This is the offer. Yes or no. Yeah. Right. What else is? There's nothing. Right. When you get to the finer detail, okay, we want a bit more there and a bit more there. All right, and we'll do a bit there, and we want that add on that. Okay, but that's like a 5-minute conversation.
Yeah.
But like the talks ongoing is like.
For 2 weeks.
I don't know. And the other thing people need to remember as well, and this is a massive bugbear of mine, right? Personal terms, technically, cannot be agreed with a player, right?
No.
It's called tapping up. Right?
Okay, right.
You cannot
always
agree.
thought that, but then it keeps saying that someone's
everyone keeps saying it. Now. It's a thing that's always gone on, right? But everyone's been, we can't say that because it looks like tapping up. Yeah. Well, now everyone doesn't care and people just seem to forget that there's a rule in place. You can only speak to the player when the 2 clubs have agreed and the club has given you permission to speak to the club.
Yeah.
You can't speak to the player and agree personal terms. So when people come out and say, personal terms agreed, well, hang on a second, the clubs have got to agree first because it's tapping up.
Yeah.
But that's another thing with the way of social media that people just go, don't worry about that. All right, we know that generally the first phone call is, would this player be interested?
Yeah, of course.
What would he want? And how much would the club want? Okay, fine. All right, we can give you this and this and we can pay the club that, fine, right. And then they'll approach the club knowing that the player's giving an indication, I'd actually be happy to join.
It's an indication rather than actual terms agreed with the player.
That's another thing that really gets to me because it's just, again, this social media world where everyone is so desperate to say something slightly different that someone else hasn't said, but they can just go, look at me, I told you.
Whenever Mark tweets that, I'm just going to put a talks ongoing or get closer. Have you got enough ties for Sky Sports? Got enough jazzy ties?
We don't wear ties anymore.
See, that's a waste.
I even wear T-shirts, It's just everything, game's gone.
Yeah,
bring back the ties.
Bring back the ties.
Bring back the
100%.
suits.
Yeah, 100%. What was the jacket on? Do you remember the promotion? That jacket you had on, the blazer. Was it like burgundy?
Yeah,
down the beach. Get that back out. Yeah, we had a few comments about that. That
was made out of old flags.
Oh, no,
so Union Jack flags.
That's cool.
Old school when they used to be all sewn and whatnot, and made into a jacket.
Still got it?
Yeah.
I love that. I can get that back out.
The designer doesn't exist anymore, but I've still got that jacket.
Love it. Mark, thanks so much for joining us. We've taken up more of your time than we should have, but thank you so much. Much appreciated. Tom, it's been a pleasure.
Cheers,
and we'll be talking about more transfer rumours and conjecture over the forthcoming weeks, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of talks ongoing, lots of things are close.
Thank you for watching, whether you've been watching or listening. Very big thanks for tuning in. Up the cherry.
Up chess.
You Reds. Right, Mark, what's the latest? Come on.